Have you ever felt?
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Good afternoon. It's drive time with Dave. I'm Dave. I'll be your driver. Oh wait, gotta put on the hater blockers. Hater blockers. No hate today. Today is Motivation Monday. Daily motivation, Motivational Monday. Today was more stressful. It was more like distraction day. I'm so beat. I can't even come up with a rhyme. Nothing that makes any sense. The amount of distractions that we are faced with daily, I'm surprised that we actually ever get anything done just with the sheer volume of distractions. And the distractions come in the form of not really work related. It's how many text messages did you get that stop you from being productive and distract you? Like I find I get all these text messages, somebody's having a crisis. How many people that I know make their problems my problem? It's like problems by proxy. Because I know you, your problem becomes my problem. And then I have to stop what I'm doing because I want to help you. I want to help you come up with a solution to your problem. Or there is no solution and I'm not helping you. All I'm doing is being a good friend and listening for hours. Because that's what good friends do. I listen for hours and hours and hours and I get nothing done. So that's what today has brought me. Just realizing the amount of distractions. And it was only because I was actually trying to get some stuff done today that needed desperately to be done. Things around the office that no one else was going to get done except me. That was it. So in the course of that, it's how many text messages I received and then would be followed up by a phone call. Hey, I texted you. Yes, I saw the text. And if I respond to the text, then you'll text me back. So I don't respond to the text, which then causes a phone call. So then I'm on the phone. And I'm never going to not answer. So I answer and I listen wholeheartedly as the problems get explained. And sometimes it does require an answer. Or, well, I'll need to give this some thought. I'm not really sure. I don't have an answer. And so that happened so many times today. Did I ever get what I was working on done? Sort of. The rest will be there tomorrow and then I'll do it again. Today was a longer day than normal at the office because of the distractions. Not being able to get things done that needed to be done. So then I think if I was one person at home trying to get listings done, or I was out sourcing, I was in a thrift store or a pawn shop, and my phone is just dinging and vibrating and going off because everybody I know doesn't think what I do is a real job. And I cannot even begin to explain to people what we do is more than a real job. And I tell everybody I know, you're lucky. At the end of the day, at 5 o'clock or 5:30 or 6 o'clock, you get to clock out, you get to go home, and your pile of work just sits there till tomorrow. And at the end of the week, you're going to get a paycheck, whether you've completed all of your tasks or not. And that's what separates us from them. And now it's actually turned into a us and them. Some of my friends get so annoyed. What do you mean I'm a them? Why can't I be part of the us? Like, well, the us side of the equation are people that we work diligently 10 hours, 11 hours, 12 hours a day with no pay. We don't get paid until our items sell. Don't make any money. And as much as I want to tell you to stop bothering me during the day that I can't work, I would have no friends left, so I can't do that. But at the same time, I also get beat by the same people that are my friends, and they think that what we do, you and I do, isn't a job at all. It's perplexing. I spent half a lifetime, half of my half, I'm not even sure how to say that, dealing with my grandmother. My grandmother told me on a weekly basis, I'd call her to check in, hey, how are you? And she would always be fine. No matter what was going on, she was always fine. So I think I always learn, no matter what, when someone calls me and asks me how I'm doing, I'm always fine. Because really, I am always fine, and whatever the problem is could be solved. So she would always ask, well, how are you? So, I'm fine. Oh, do you have a job yet? No, I don't have a job. Gosh. She would always say, the weekly conversation was always the same. Gosh, I just don't understand. Now, how do you have any money? How do you make money? Well, I buy stuff and I sell it. And that is my job, buying and selling. But you don't do it for anybody. No, I do it for myself. Should I say, one of these days, you should really get a job. I know. And one of these days I might have to. If I fail so badly at buying and selling, it is possible that I will have to get a job. But between now and then, I don't need to get a job. Years went by. Tens of years. I'm not saying that right. But enough years went by from the time I was in my 20s to in my 30s. And by the time I was almost into my 40s, almost. I don't have exact time frames to give, but somewhere around the time I was 37 or 38, she couldn't live by herself anymore. And so I volunteered immediately, I would love for you to come live with me. And she obliged. And she sold her house. And it wasn't a house, it was a 25-foot single-wide trailer that she had lived in for a lifetime on a piece of property that she paid $20,000 for. And so when she sold it, she got $25,000 for the trailer and the piece of property. And she had no furniture because she didn't want her furniture. She'd had the same furniture for, let's just say, 38 years of my life. The furniture was always the same. She would never buy any furniture. She never bought anything. And she moved in with just a little bit of clothes. And my house was had this like a split level. I'll try to explain it the best possible. It sounds crazy. So the front door, you went up steps to get to the front door. So it was raised way up, not just a few steps. It was big steps. You went up the front door. And when you went in, there were steps that went back down or steps that went up. So when you go down, you turn and there was a living room and 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. And so she was, oh my gosh, I've got my own place. Absolutely. If the whole downstairs area can be yours. So the whole downstairs. So we actually turned a bedroom into kitchen. I put a refrigerator and kitchen counters in it and cabinets and a sink. We just plumbed it right off the bathroom plumbing, so it was pretty easy. So she had her own little apartment. And she gets moved in, and she'd live with me probably, 4 or 5 months. Well, I never left the house, right? And so she's like, one day she's like, so I have a really important question to ask. Well, I'm on pins and needles. Oh my gosh, you've got an important question to ask. She goes, well, I've noticed that you haven't left the house since I moved in. I said, that's correct. Well, do you need some money? No. Well, if you haven't left the house, how are you making any money? Well, as I've explained, I buy and sell. So you're buying and selling without leaving the house? That is correct. At that point in time, this was way before any eBay. And I did a lot of buying and selling from the house. I was buying material from brokers, and I'd bring it in and I'd repack the material or freight forward it off. So I had a lot of material that I bought and sold from the house, and I never left. No, I don't need any money. I'm fine. And she goes, "What? Well, I'm worried." Well, what are you worried about? Well, if you're not really making any money, I don't have anywhere to live if you lose the house. If I lose my house? Well, I'm not going to lose my house. Well, I'm scared. Okay, well, would you like me to put you on the house? I'm not clear. I mean, do you want to see the title of the house? The deed of the house? What do you need to see? You have the title? I do. So you don't owe anything on this house? No. She goes, "Why do I feel like I'm prying information out of you?" And I said, "Interestingly enough, why do I feel like you're trying to pry information out of me?" Funny how that works out in two directions. You're prying or I'm being pried. I'm not sure which. Yes, my house is paid for. No, I'm not going to lose my house. And I have no intention of getting a job. She goes, "Well, okay." Now, she was much older at this point. So she was in her 70s. And about a week later, we had the same conversation again. She comes to my office, which is just a bedroom in the house. "I have a very important question." I said, "Let me guess. You're concerned because I haven't left the house?" "Yes." And all I could do is laugh. And she goes, "Why are you laughing?" Because we had this conversation already. And that's when I realized that she actually didn't remember. And I said, "Well, I don't know how to convince you that everything is fine. But if there's anything I could do..." So what I did was I printed out and I started building a wall in her room of all the important things that we talked about. And it was funny because I didn't actually have a wall of important things that I needed to be reminded of. And so in doing so, I taught myself a very valuable lesson. And today, in all the offices at work, we have whiteboards of very important things and people that we need to remember to call and talk to, or in the customer service office, the girls in there have a whiteboard of customers that have had huge problems, or we have huge problems with, and we have to make a note of them. So we can remember when they call, they won't pull a fast one on us, or vice versa, a customer that needs additional attention for they've made multiple purchases or whatever the case may be. So it was funny as time went on, and so the very first piece of information we put on there, things that you should know, see board first. So was the deed of the house and the title. So she would read it and she'd come over, and then so about 2 weeks later she'd come and she goes, "So I've got a really important question." And I'm like, "Well, okay." I wasn't really sure how I was going to start this time, so I simply said, "Okay. What would you like to know?" She goes, Is that really the title of the house?" Yes it is. So then I put a note beside it, "That is really the title of the house. You have nothing to worry about," with an arrow pointing over. So about a week later she comes and she goes, "Gosh, I feel better today than I felt in a long time. And I said, really? Why is that? She goes, well, I read that note beside the title. Well, all right. Well, I'm glad that knowing that I'm not losing my house and that I don't need a job, she goes, she actually read everything on the board. And every week she would read all the information on the board. And then she would come up to talk to me about all the information on the board. And I realized just the simplest thing of being organized and keeping track, that in a file folder, in a file cabinet, your thoughts and the things that are important may be organized, but out of sight, out of mind. And then you have to dig through each of those file folders. And each time I walk in the accounting office and I need a piece of information, she can find it very, very quickly. But that one piece of information doesn't tell the entire story. And sometimes I need more information than that one piece. Why is that customer upset? What can I change? Having a customer that's upset because they simply don't like a product, we didn't describe it well, is only one piece. How do we ensure that we don't upset any more customers? And that piece of information going in a file, in a filing cabinet, doesn't tell the story, which allows me to come up with a process for material handling, or a way to, once that customer was upset, and now the customer's not upset anymore, who handled that? What did they say? So one of the girls in the office, I would go and say, well, what happened with this guy, Mark? We worked it out. Clearly, I understand that you've worked it out. How? What was said? What did you do? That is the important information that I like to keep. And I add it to my board of what was done and why was it different when one girl in the office handled it versus one of the guys, or one of the other girls handled it, or women or men. Gotta be correct now in what I say. What was the difference in the way it was handled? Why did she succeed where she failed, or he failed? Those are the important details that keep us moving forward. So our lesson today are the lessons that we have learned. And how do we improve what we have learned? How can we be better tomorrow than we were today by the lessons that we learned yesterday? I'm Dave, and this was Drive Time, and I'll see you soon.